This is what you can do about taking control of your own health, a podcast for people interested in learning how to create bodies that are healthy, strong, fit, and disease resistant. I am Sean McClendon. I'm a certified personal trainer, the host of this podcast, obviously, an author and a health and fitness enthusiast. Thank you for joining me today. In this episode, I would like to talk about the supposed Skittles ban. But before we get into that, let's talk about our featured book for this episode, which is my book called 8 Weeks to Transform Your Diet and Your Health. So you can have the best exercise routine in the world, but if your diet is off, there's one thing that is guaranteed: you will not see results. In 8 Weeks to Transform Your Diet and Your Health, I've created an easy to follow set of eating habits for you to adopt over 8 weeks to boost your health, most importantly, promote fat loss, and get the most out of your exercise regimen. So when you finish this workbook, you will know finally how to get results. Make sure you look in the description below this episode to find the link to buy your copy of 8 Weeks to Transform Your Diet and Your Health. All right. The information on this podcast is based on personal research and opinion and is not meant to be a substitute for advice from a doctor or physician. You are advised to consult your doctor or physician before making any changes to your lifestyle. All right, so in case you haven't heard the news recently, there was a quote Skittles ban, and I put quotes around that, that was supposed to be potentially going into effect if being signed into law in California. And the reason why I keep on putting quotes around it is because it wasn't really a quote Skittles ban. What it was is there was and let me make sure I use the right terminology. There was a bill, an assembly bill, put before their assembly out there in California. And the bill was prohibiting the manufacture or sale of products that had a list of different additives, different ingredients. One of which was an ingredient contained in Skittles, an ingredient called titanium dioxide. Now that particular ingredient, additive, or whatever you want to call it, was removed from that list of potentially banned items, supposedly to get more bipartisan support. So Skittles actually was not going to have to do any sort of reformulation or anything because that was removed from the list. Anyhow, the other additives and whatnot that remain on the list include red number 3, potassium bromate, brominated vegetable oil, and propylparaben. And I realized that I didn't get the information on that I wanted to. But yeah. So anyhow, those are and like I said, titanium dioxide was actually removed from that list. Now, why am I talking about that? The reason why I'm talking about it is not because I want to get into the politics of it all. I absolutely do not want to get into any of those type of politics. And what I mean by that is, whether or not stuff should be actually banned and whatnot. But what I will say is that most of the things on the list, that especially the ones that remain on that list of potential items that California wants to ban, and even New York wants to ban, I think some, if not all of those as well. The interesting thing is that a lot of nations have already banned these items from being able to be used in food products. So, that's interesting. That we in the United States, that we're one of the few major nations that still allows these products, these additives that a lot of other nations don't allow because of the potential health problems according to like scientific studies. So let's talk about this a little bit. So first of all, let me just speak a little bit broadly on this. The thing you have to understand when it comes to additives of all kinds, basically you go to the grocery store, you have a food label on there. It has the logo and it has, maybe a picture of the food or drink and all that kind of stuff. It has nutrition facts. It also has an ingredient list that tells you everything that's in there. Now, generally, the more natural a food is, the less the less verbiage you're gonna see in that ingredient list. There's gonna be less ingredients. And ideally, since we do want to consume diets that are as natural as possible, ideally, the shorter the ingredient list, the better. For example, I remember I used to eat one of these Lara bar. It's a little bar called a Lara bar that I used to eat back in the day. And it literally would have 2 or 3 ingredients, like maybe cashews, dates, and maybe salt or something like that. Very few ingredients. So if you're going to get some sort of product that comes in a package that has an ingredient list, then the fewer the ingredients, the better from like a natural standpoint, because that means there's less chemicals. That said, this whole proposed Skittles ban, again, which is not really a Skittles ban, it kind of brings to light like what's in some of the foods that we eat. That's why I really want to talk about it, because a lot of times we just consume stuff, and we know it has weird looking stuff on there, but we just kind of like just don't really think about it, but I wanted to talk a little bit about some more of like the purpose for and the concerns about these different type of additives that were on the list. So you have red number 3, which is also called erythrocine. I think is how you pronounce it. ERYTHROSINE. So it's a pink dye used for food coloring. You probably figured red number 3. Now, it's actually one of the least used colorings. Usually, a lot of the foods that we consume have red 40. But it's used for food coloring, for printer ink, and other things. And now, as far as potential health problems, it's suspected of causing cancer. It's also suspected of contributing to hyperactivity. You've probably heard people talk about red food coloring and hyperactivity in kids. It's also suspected of disrupting thyroid hormone production. And you find red 3, like I said, it's not in as many things as red 40. But you find it in the maraschino cherries, that the little glass jar of very, very red cherries, sausage casings, meal replacements, I guess, canned fruit, frosting, baked goods, and so on, that have food coloring in them. But yeah, so it's banned. Red number 3 also has already been banned. It's been banned from cosmetics and external drugs, but it's still allowed to some degree in foods. But these are the things it's suspected of causing. Now, why though? So like think about the maraschino cherries. It's to make them appealing, to make them very red and very appealing. Okay. So there's no health benefit. There's no nothing. It's just to make it more visually appealing so that you and I will want to buy them. That's it. So you got to think about that. Potassium bromate is something used with flour. It's supposed to be like a flour improver, to allow flour to kind of strengthen flour, to make it, help it to rise more. Now, apparently, whenever potassium bromate is used, if too much is added, or if the bread is not baked long enough, then you'll have a lot of residual, and that can actually be harmful to consume that baked product. Potassium bromate is considered, it's a very powerful oxidizer, and it's considered a carcinogen. Carcinogen means cancer causing. It has been banned by the European Union, Argentina, Brazil, Canada, Nigeria, South Korea, Peru, Sri Lanka, China, and India. Now, the FDA, apparently, the Food and Drug Administration, has apparently urged bakers to voluntarily stop using it, but it hasn't been banned. brominated vegetable oil. And I know I've seen brominated vegetable oil somewhere. I just don't remember exactly where. I was trying to find it. But brominated vegetable oil is used often to add to citrus drinks. You know, drinks that like orange and lemon, this and that, like sodas and stuff. It's usually added to emulsify them. And essentially, emulsification is something that you do to kind of like try to keep drinks from or liquids from separating that would normally be separated, you know. And so, you know, think about, you know, like how it is with oil and water, how you can't really combine them. So, you know, it would be something to have help substances in a citrus drink stay together instead of separating. Because, you know, think about it. Why would somebody want that? Because they, you know, you wouldn't want to open up your soda and then just kind of see levels of stuff in the drink. You know, it would affect the flavor, and it also would affect whether or not you actually want to be drinking something like that. But brominated vegetable oil is considered an endocrine disruptor. The endocrine system is just the system of the various hormone producing organs in your body, like your thyroid and sexual organs and your adrenals and you know, various. I'm trying to think. I know there's more, but various hormone producing organs. But brominated vegetable oil is considered an endocrine disruptor, particularly for the thyroid, you know, as well as the reproductive system and other endocrine organs. And then finally, propylparaben is it's a preservative. So whenever you think about a preservative, you know, preserve to kind of help it keep longer. So it actually is it can be found naturally in plants and stuff. According to Wikipedia, it can be found naturally in plants. But let me see. It's used to preserve baked goods, particularly pastries and tortillas. Okay. So, you know, you want to, you know, people want to preserve their goods so that they have a longer shelf life and stuff like that. But the thing is, so this also is considered a endocrine disruptor and can affect male and female reproductive health. Okay. So the thing that I want us to consider is, again, the more natural a food is, that means it's going to be less ingredients, because it's going to be more so like how it was whenever it came from the earth. But you know, the different other packaged goods that we, if you can call them goods, that we consume. Oh yeah, but hold that thought. On that note, the titanium dioxide that got removed from the list, I did want to talk about what that actually is. The purpose of that is. So titanium dioxide is a color additive that helps colors stay longer, helps make products more visually appealing, helps them to keep that color instead of like fading over time. So it's kind of what helps those Skittles stay bright forever and ever and ever. But it also has been linked to cancer, I think colon cancer, irritable bowel disease, immune system disruption. But again, that is not on the list. Now, keep in mind, these things are all in studies and whatnot, which is why various other countries have banned these. Like, I think titanium dioxide, I saw for sure, it's banned by the European Union, but it was reinstated. It was reversed by a court, that ban. But what I want you to keep in mind is, a lot of times, additives, the weird stuff, is added to foods to help them to look more appealing to us so that we want to buy them, help them to stay on the shelf longer, because normally, under normal circumstances, they would mold or get stale, go bad some sort of way. And the longer it stays on the shelf, the better, the more opportunity for us to buy them. and not buy like a moldy loaf of bread or something like that. Sometimes a lot of times it's like to make the stuff more visually appealing to us and to make it more likely that we're going to buy it. Now, as far as whether or not it adds, nutritional benefit, almost 100% of the time, it's like, no, doesn't. None of these things do. So that's what we have to kind of consider. And these are the things that we ingest whenever we consume diets that are filled with packaged processed foods. This is where that whole process thing comes from. They're processed so that they can be more appealing to us to buy them and to generate a profit. Now, there's nothing wrong with generating a profit. However, you have to decide whether you want to be on the side of that kind of profit generation, because it seems like it can come at your expense. Okay? So be mindful of what you're eating, man. Be mindful of what you're eating. And if you're really wanting to gain control of your health, then you really need to make sure that your diet is as natural as possible. Again, as far as whether or not California or the country for that matter bans that stuff, that gets into a whole nother thing that I'm not really going to discuss on this podcast. But I do think it's interesting that many, many other major nations have banned these things because of the scientific studies pointing to health problems, significant health problems with the consumption of them. So decide that. Decide what you want to do. It might mean you need to cook more. It might mean that you need to eat less. That you need to stop snacking. And gain gain control over your palate, over your, as they say, sweet tooth and all that kind of stuff. You just got to know what you're putting in your body. Don't just mindlessly. We have to get out, and I do as well, have to get out of the mindset of just eating stuff, just eating it. Because, and I'll say this and I'll be done. Truth be told, a lot of times what we do, we just eat to eat. Like, we don't really eat to feed our bodies. We don't. We just eat to put something in there. That's it. And that is 100% harmful. We have to stop mindlessly eating, because we just put anything in there and we act like we're just like some sort of furnace that will just burn stuff up. And we keep on forgetting that we are this, we are beings that, to sustain life in our bodies, have to have various nutrients, vitamins, minerals, all these different things to maintain, vitality and all that kind of stuff. But when we don't, we think that when we get older, our bodies just naturally wear down and whatnot. And getting older, your body runs differently. But a lot of what we've attributed to getting older, age and whatnot, is more so a lot of these bad habits and the consumption of bad foods and again, unhealthy habits catching up with us. And that's the truth. That's the truth. You can do your own research to see what I mean. But that's the kind of stuff I talk about on this podcast. So if you stay tuned, then you'll see what I mean. All right, make sure you get your copy of my book, 8 Weeks to Transform Your Diet and Your Health. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like and share this episode of the podcast. Comment. I want to hear from y'all, man. I definitely want to hear from y'all. Remember, your doctor's not responsible for your health. You are. God bless you.